Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month is Spring is Coming. Will an improved real estate market come with it? This show is being taped in March. We're reporting on the February numbers, the recordings at the Registry of Deeds. So we'll start with deeds, sales of property. Real estate has really slowed down with rising interest rates. The Federal Reserve, as I've said, have attempted to slow down the economy and certainly have done it in real estate. There are only 387 deeds recorded in February, less than the 513 in January, 30% less than the 555 deeds last year. Year to date, we're down 26%. You get to see an image of all the communities in Plymouth County. There are 27 communities from Abington to Whitman. Each and every community has had sales. Clearly, Plymouth and Brockton have the highest number of sales, but every community has had sales of property. The biggest impact from the rising interest rates has been mortgages. Even as recently as last year, we had a number of people refinancing their property when the rates were lower. That has pretty much dropped away other than real specific situations. The number of mortgages are down. There are only 703 mortgages recorded in February, less than the 958 recorded in January. 60% less than the 1,747 last February. In year to date, down 55%. I guess the good news is the foreclosures are still way down. There was a moratorium in place during COVID when foreclosure deeds could not go forward. We're still down very low. There are only 9 foreclosure deeds in February for the entire 27 communities of Plymouth County, less than the 10 foreclosure deeds in January. Because of the moratorium, they're up year to year by about 36%. Foreclosure notices have been a little different, a little higher level, and you'll see from that bar chart, there were 42 foreclosure notices. Foreclosure notice is the first thing that we get at the registry that shows someone's in trouble, usually having either trouble paying their mortgage, maybe a health issue, job issue. But if you find yourself in difficulty, reach out to a federal housing counselor as soon as you can to try to do a modification. The worst thing you can do is ignore that. There were, again, 42 foreclosure notices in February, less than the 57 in January, 20% more than the 35 last February, and 52% up year to date. You're going to see a listing of foreclosure deeds and orders of notice for the 27 communities in Plymouth County. There are a lot of zeros there. Brockton and Plymouth have always had the highest amounts over the years, and you can see 14 orders of notice in Brockton, 5 in Plymouth, and 2 foreclosure deeds in Brockton and 1 in Plymouth. But again, if you find yourself in difficulty, don't hesitate to reach out. I want to share with you a couple things of note. We have a free fraud alert available on our website. If you go to our website, PlymouthDeeds.org, and go to a resource section, you'll come to fraud alert. If you sign up for that with your email, anything recorded against your property will be sent, an email will be sent to you to warn you of that. It's a free service, certainly better than some of the other opportunities out there, and more and more people are signing up for that free fraud alert. Please be aware there are a lot of scams out there in real estate. People try to take advantage of your assets. There's a scam where people will say, we can get you a copy of your deed for $50, $60, sometimes up to $90 to do that for you. Whereas you can go to one of our satellite offices in Plymouth, Brockton, and Rockland and get a copy of your deed for $1 a page. I advise everyone to have a copy of their deed similar to and put it with your healthcare proxy, your will, and other estate planning devices just to make it simpler when the need arises. We're continuing to do a very high number of recordings over the internet. For recorded land is about 80%, for land court about 50%. I will say there's been a issue recently from the Attorney General's office. There was this company out there that were offering to give people a small amount of money, sometimes $1,000, $1,500, as long as you signed a document that gave them the right to be your realtor for 40 years. A lot of people claim they didn't know they were signing along those rights. They were being recorded as a lien in their property, but the Attorney General's office just stepped in and are making them give that up. They're making them record discharges on those. So just be careful with what you're doing with real estate. And I also want to note, we've been doing a transcription project with our early deeds and documents. Plymouth County documents began in 1685 after the split of Plymouth County into Plymouth County, Barnstable County, and Bristol County. But from 1685 to 1868, we've actually put, along with the cursive, the handwriting of the document, a transcription, a printed version of the information, and you have that advantage to look at that. I have a great repeat guest coming on the second segment of the show, Steve Amico, a vice president at Coastal Heritage Bank, who will be talking about current banking issues, current banking trends, and some new programs out there that you might be interested in. So we'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I have a great repeat guest on this show. I have Steve Amico, Vice President of the Coastal Heritage Bank. Welcome again.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me.
Always great to see you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So I thought it would be timely, with all the issues and questions going out there in the mortgage industry right now, not to talk about the big bank issues right now, but just let's talk about, how the rising interest rates have affected your job of getting people into homes and where we're going from here.
Sure. So currently, with the rates being as high as they are, or higher than what they were over the last few years, it's a little bit more difficult qualifying people for those higher amounts. There's still a crunch out there on homes. There's still not enough homes for the people who are looking to buy. We are doing an awful lot of pre-approvals right now for people, more than we've ever seen before, and a lot of first-time home buyers pre-approvals, which is enlightening to us because I think we're going to see the market break a little bit, but there's still, there needs to be more housing going on the market, and that's what we're not seeing right now. And that's because of all the low rates that were out there over the past couple of years prior to last year and the beginning of this year.
So I tripped over my usual introduction. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit how you got into the business and a little bit about your company?
Sure. Well, I've been in the mortgage business and in the banking business for 35 years now. I've been with Coastal Heritage for 27 years. And Coastal Heritage Bank is a great small community bank with just under $1 billion in assets. Everything that we do is FDIC and DIF insured, which means unlike some of these other banks that are having issues right now, we are 100% guaranteed, or your deposits are 100% guaranteed up to unlimited.
Yeah.
We have 9 offices in Weymouth, Quincy, Marshfield, Kingston, Situate, Hanover, Norwell, Hingham. So we're very well located on the South Shore.
Right. I'm sorry I skipped that at the
That's
beginning.
okay.
Usually begin with that. So we have had a significant drop in our number of mortgages compared to last year even. Because of the rising interest rates, the number of refinances are very, very low.
The only time that we've seen refinances right now is if there is a need for it.
Okay.
Someone's getting a divorce.
Yeah.
They need to, a lot of times what we're seeing now is as well on a refinance, and I had a couple of these over the last 2 months, people buying a second property.
Okay.
And they're buying it out of state. They want to keep their business local.
Right.
We don't do out-of-state loans, so they're refinancing their property to take the equity out to buy the second home.
Okay.
But we are seeing an awful lot of home equity lines of credit going on the books.
I believe that, yeah.
So instead of losing that 2 or 3% interest rate that they have, they're moving on to a home equity line of credit. And then with hopes that if the rates do come back down to that level or somewhere in that vicinity level, that they can do a refinance and combine them all together again.
So I will say, even though we're in a little bit of tricky times right now, it's totally different than 2008
Yes.
because everybody is flush with equity.
Yes. Not only are they flushed with equity, but there is, and we've seen it on our end, there's also a very low default rate, and there's a low delinquency rate because people are paying their bills. They're
Right.
not. I think what we learned in 2008 and 2009 and a few years after that, I think what banks learned, I mean, we've always been in that area, but what I think most of the bigger banks or some of the other banks learned is not to overextend people and keep people within their means, in their budget, and you won't have issues later on.
Yeah, well, lenders like yours never, with a no doc, no income verification.
Yeah, no, we've never done that.
Yeah.
We that's something that we never ever did.
Yeah. So let's talk about new opportunities that folks have come up with.
So we have a fantastic first-time homebuyer program, and it's unlike a lot of the other first-time homebuyer programs. Our first-time homebuyer program goes up to an income of about $175,000. So even though it's not low income, it's first-time homebuyer income.
Okay.
So if you have 2 people working and they are making it, they will be able to get into our first-time homebuyer program. There are a couple of caveats with it. One, you have to take a first-time homebuyer's course,
Right.
which I think every first-time homebuyer should
I
take.
totally agree with you.
And 2, they have to open up an account with us, and they have to have a direct deposit with us. So those are really the only 2 caveats, and our interest rates are far greater. So today, our first-time homebuyer interest rate out there is at 5.75%, where the market rate right now for a regular mortgage is 6.5%.
Right.
So, you're looking at 0.75% different from the 5.75 to the 6.5.
Right.
We've also seen a very large influx of ARMs. People are now taking the ARM product. 5.5 ARMs, 7.3 ARMs, 10.1 ARMs. Right now, 5.5 ARMs are out there at 5 1/8. 7.3s, 5 3/8.
So they're fixed for 5 and then they adjust?
That's correct. Yeah, it's fixed for 5 years, and then it'll adjust every 5 years thereafter.
Okay.
They've got a 2% per adjustment cap, and also a 5% lifetime cap. So if they started off, and I know this is going to sound high, but if they start off at 5 1/8, worst case scenario, which would be 18 years or 15 years from now, worst case scenario is it could be at 10.1 10.125%. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, because there's also a second consumer cap on that. The second consumer cap is that it can never be more than 2.5% at an adjustment period, never more than 2.5% above the 5-year Treasury bill. So it's a very consumer-friendly mortgage, and on top of that, there's no prepayment penalties, and you can pay it down any time you want.
So a lot of people in an adjustable will look a few years out, hoping that our economy balances out, and the rates come down a little bit again.
Exactly. We also, us and a number of other banks through the Federal Home Loan Bank have also begun offering, and it starts on April 3rd. So there's going to be offerings in April, May, and June. And they're going to do it, they're kind of breaking it down this year. All the other years they used to say, okay, on April 1st, everyone, come in and do this. There's a grant program for low and moderate income borrowers. There's two programs. There's the EBP program, which is the Equity Builder program, which will grant someone up to $29,000. You have to one of the requirements is you have to stay in the house for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Then that grant is completely forgiven. Last year, I believe it was $25,000. This year, they've upped it to $29,000. That's for anyone with 80% of the median income or below. They have another program that's called the HOW program, which is Housing Our Workforce program, which goes from 80.1% to 120% of area median income. Okay. And that will give a grant up to $25,000 or 10% of the purchase price. And again, stay in the property for 5 years, and that grant is forgiven.
So do you know what the area median income is?
Well, it's different for every area.
Yeah,
if you look at the Brockton area, Brockton, Hanson, Abington, I believe for a single, and they use all the income in the household, so I believe for a single person, 80% is $62,000, and a single person is $74,000 at 100%. Okay. So it does qualify you for quite a bit when you look at it on the HOW program.
Certainly worth people evaluating.
Absolutely.
What's right for them.
Absolutely, and the nice thing is that any of the banks that are offering that Federal Home Loan Bank program, the first 1/3 of any of their applications have to be to first-time home buyers, whether it's on the EBP program or the HOW program. Has to be offered to first-time home buyers, and you have to expend at least 1/3 of your money. So, for instance, Coastal Heritage Bank, we have up to $350,000 that we can grant. Now, it's a very competitive grant, which means that once they run out of money, even if we haven't given anything out, they don't have any more money. Mm-hmm. Last year, they actually ran out of money, but they used a lot of the HOW money that wasn't used. Okay. And they put that back into the Equity Builder and HOW again, and they offered it again in August, which was fantastic because we were able to get at least one more person in on the program. So
yeah, those are good programs.
They are awesome programs.
We're finding the difficulty is finding a place.
That's the biggest issue of all. There just isn't enough properties out there. Yeah. There's a lot of people looking, but not enough inventory out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that people will do the normal transition of upsizing or downsizing, and it's just not happening.
Well, I think part of the problem is over the past couple of years, we had those low interest rates. Right. If there's not a need for someone to move, right, they're not moving, right, unless they're moving down south, right, or they're retiring, right, and they want to move up north to a place up in New Hampshire or right, Vermont or whatever. But we just don't see that happening right now because of the rates being higher. Moving from this house to this house really isn't.
Are you finding people doing renovations?
Yes, they are. A lot of people have done renovations during the pandemic. That
Right.
was a huge thing. Was everyone was
Right.
doing renovations, but people are still doing that, and that's again they're using the home equity lines of credit for that,
Right.
in hopes that the rates will come back down to some sort of a stabilization. And I think when that happens, is you're going to see a lot of refinances happen again on your end. But I really think that it's going to end up somewhere between the 5 and 6% range once everything is all settled.
Yeah, a lot of people like you and I watch daily trends. And we know the Federal, at the time of the taping of this show, we know the Federal Reserve is meeting again tomorrow.
Right.
They're supposedly, maybe doing a 2.25 instead of the 5 they've been talking about because of other issues.
Well, I think a lot of the banking issues that happened with SVB
Right.
and with Signature Bank had a lot to do with who they were lending to and who their clients were. And with the feds increasing the interest rates as rapidly as they did, it affected their businesses, and they were looking for cash, and they couldn't find the cash. And I think that's what's happening right now with First Republic, and that's happening as we are speaking right now.
Right.
You know,
I saw that this morning.
yeah, their stock has really taken a tumble.
So the most difficult thing in the world is to look into the future right now.
Right.
So why don't you try to give a little assessment of what people should be looking for as they go forward in the marketplace?
One of the things that I always tell people is if you're looking for a home, there's a couple of things that you really don't want to give up. One is you don't want to give up your mortgage contingency, because if you do, and for some reason that appraisal doesn't come in or something goes wrong, you don't have a way out. Be very cautious if you're giving up your home inspection. I would always recommend to people, make sure when they do a home inspection, even if they're doing it for informational purposes only, do it before they sign a purchase and sales agreement. This way they know what they're getting into, and they can kind of divide where they're going to spend their money and how they're going to put their money down on to the purchase if they decide to continue. I think we're going to see the rates kind of settle somewhere. And again, this is my prediction. I'm not an economist. I don't play one on TV. But I think you're going to see it settle somewhere between the 5 and the 6% once everything settles, the dust settles, we see inflation come back down again. I think that we're going to see it settle somewhere between the 5 and 6% range, which is good for the customer.
Right.
And it's also good for the lending institutions. But as far as homes, I think you're going to see a little bit more homes on the market come this spring, maybe April sometime. You're going to start to
We're
see.
hearing that, yeah.
Yeah. I have a couple of customers who have been looking for a home, and now they have a home, and they're going to be putting their home on the market.
Good.
But housing is still going for over asking in a lot of places.
Right. And our average sale price around here is still higher than last year. Some places, in individual cases, you've seen some drops, but
Right.
across our very diverse marketplace in Plymouth County,
Right.
the prices have still gone up.
Which is a good thing for getting back to 2008,
Right,
2009,
right.
where we had declining prices, and now we're still seeing it. Thank goodness it's not rising at the double digits that it was rising back 3 years ago, but it's still rising anywhere from the 4 to 6% range.
So can you share your contact information with our viewers?
Absolutely. So my name is Steve Amico, and I'm with Coastal Heritage Bank. My telephone number at the office is 781-796-6125. My cell phone is 617-529-8444. And my email is samico@coastalheritagebank.com. We have 2 other mortgage originators, Steve Masterles and Lisa Swain, that I have working with me. And so if you want to contact me, I can get you in touch with one of them, or you can deal directly with me.
Great.
John, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. You always do a great job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You do too.
Welcome back to the Registered Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we do something lighter in nature. We talk about some of the holidays, some of the Plymouth County notable records and one of the Plymouth Colony notable records. A lot of holidays in March: National Oreo Day, Daylight Savings Time began, St. Patrick's Day on the 17th, spring began on the 20th, Greek Independence Day on the 25th, Cesar Chavez Day on the 31st. It's a lot of holidays in March. But we're going to go right to one of our Plymouth Colony notable records. And we talked about National Oreo Day. So what goes better with Oreos than milk? We have a great, interesting place on the Bridgewater, West Bridgewater line, which is called the Skim Milk Bridge. It spans the town river near Old Maple Street, where it crosses the river. It's a stone bridge, a dry stone constructed bridge that was built on an old county road, subsequently discontinued. But it's something you can walk out to. If you go from Scotland Street, you can walk on a trail, Mass Wildlife Trail, and there's a small parking area on Scotland Street, and you can do that little walk. It's actually part of the Bay Circuit Trail and the Nuncotusset Greenway. But I think if you did do that, park there, walk out, you'll find it a very peaceful place in a great historical spot because the bridge is still there. The reason it is called the Skim Milk Bridge is because the water rushing over the rocks turned into a milky substance. The next notable record is for St. Patrick's Day. John Boyle O'Reilly was a famous Irish patriot, poet, and editor. He was born in County Meath, Ireland. He enlisted in the British Army. He's convicted of activities supporting Ireland and was convicted and sent to death, although sent to a penal colony in West Australia in his place. He escaped, became a leader in the Irish community, was editor of the Pilot, the newspaper of the Archdiocese, but he purchased a summer home in Hull in 1880. It was had an old house demolished and a new one built. And that house is the Hull Public Library. He was a very important figure at the time. He died in Hull in 1890, and there's a monument in his name in the Fenway section of Boston. International Women's Day was this month. We always go back to Deborah Sampson, a soldier in the American Revolution. She dressed up as a man and fought many battles. She was born in Plimpton in 1760. At 21, she enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment under the name of Robert Shirtliff. She eventually was wounded 3 times in battles and was honorably discharged by General George Washington. And she later married and moved to Sharon. But her likeness adorns the flag of Plimpton, and there's a monument in her honor on Route 58 on the Plimpton Town Green. So last but not least is one of our Plymouth Colony records. It was from 1652, and the colonial court at the time was dealing with energy, and what they did was use whale oil to establish energy projects. Whale oil was what they used for light at the time, for lighting in the rooms, and for every whale that they killed and the oil they took off from it, 1 barrel was paid to the treasury as a tax on energy. That will be on display at our Registry of Deeds building on the last Friday of the month. I want to thank Lorna Green Baker, Christine Riches from our office for helping with this show, Mike Simmons, Emma Reardon worked on the show with me. Again, this is my 149th show on Brockton Cable Access. We share this show with cable access providers throughout Plymouth County. So I thank you for helping me with this show. And we'll see you next month.